As Americans continue to face new and difficult challenges, Hiring America is speaking with experts and inspirational figures around the country to help support our veterans and their families during this trying time. This week, we're speaking with Flo Groberg, U.S. Army veteran, recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor for military valor during the War on Terrorism, and executive at Microsoft. Flo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Lauren. Super excited about this opportunity.
You've distinguished yourself in service of our country with your heroic actions, but you've since gone on to distinguish yourself in the corporate world as well, taking leading roles with Boeing and most recently Microsoft. What was your transition to the civilian workforce like? Did you know what path you wanted to take and that it would lead you to where you are today?
That's a great question. And to be honest with you, no, I had no idea about my path because it wasn't part of the plan. I didn't have a contingency plan that included, transition into the civilian sector. So obviously when August 8, 2012 happened, it just, threw a wrench in everything.
On August 8, 2012, Flo's team was providing security to senior U.S. and Afghan military leaders in Afghanistan when a suicide bomber approached his squad. Flo immediately took action to keep the terrorists away from his men. He was seriously injured in the attack, and 4 men died that day, but many more would likely have perished if not for Flo's heroic actions.
I have to be honest, it was very difficult. I knew I needed help because I was definitely lost. I did not know what my skill sets and experience brought to the table to be successful in a transition. And so I needed to really associate myself with individuals who actually, had gone through what I was going through. And I needed a mentor. And that's when I connected with Jared Shepard. He was a former infantry NCO who had transitioned out and started his own business. I met him through a program at the Walter Reed Hospital, and he potentially had a good, idea of where I wanted to go. So the first thing that we did is we decided to just take a piece of paper. I'll never forget that first meeting, and we split it in half, and he told me to write, on the right side, 10 things I really don't want to do, and on the left side, 10 things I really want to do. So I was a little confused at first, and he said, "Well, here's an example. Do you like, working in front of a computer 8 to 10 hours a day?" And I said, "Absolutely not." So he's like, write that down. And so after we were done with that list, it really eliminated a lot of careers, and it allowed us to focus on specific paths. But it was a process, and it didn't happen overnight.
So, how do people go about identifying that key mentor who was so fundamental to your first job?
I think it's really connected with an individual that understands where you come from, more than likely because they come from that same environment, who have taken that next step. That's what Jared, did, right? He served in the armed forces. He was in the army. He deployed overseas. So, we had all that in common. We were both infantry guys. And then, he transitioned. And so he took the time to share his lessons learned. And he took the time to introduce me to people that would understand, where I came from. And most importantly, he helped me sort of translate my experiences into those specific words that can lead to a potential job opportunity.
Many veterans exit the military and feel as though their service experience can or doesn't apply to the civilian workforce. Flo, did you ever doubt your own qualifications?
Oh yeah, I mean that was probably the first part of my transition where I was just completely lost. And again, like I mentioned earlier, you got to have that mentor and a network, right? Because they're going to really open up your eyes, and then you really need to start like doing your research, and start understanding. You can go through all these resume builder and all these people like telling you like, hey, this is how you answer a specific question on a resume and blah blah blah. And they can prep you all day, but if you don't believe it internally, if you don't actually believe that what you did actually is going to bring value to this position, then you have an issue. And that is where I work really hard for a really long time to really understand like, okay, so my role really in the Army as an infantry officer was to be a project or program manager, right? I build plans, right? I look at my resources, I identify my needs and requirements, and I build these plans, and then I disseminated, these plans to my team, and I task folks, right? And I started taking this and translating that into, oh, wow, that sounds like a project management potential role, right? And I was able to actually speak it in interviews when people were asking me like, well, have you ever led teams? Absolutely. Have you ever led a project? Well, yes. I've done this and that, and I did it in austere environments under intense pressure, life or death situations with limited funds and no support, things like that. And people are like, "Oh, wow, never even." I said, and one person even said to me, "I never thought about the army that way." And my response to them was like, "Me neither." you know.
Veterans often feel a loss of identity once they transition out of the military. Is that something you experienced, and how are you able to find a new purpose?
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. Like a lot of people feel like, man, I don't know what I bring to the table. It's really easy in the military. You put on the same uniform every single day and you go fight for your country and you fight for each other. And when you transition, right, you're in a foreign world, different language. You have to dress differently. Hours are different. Expectations are different. People's feelings exist. So I always make fun of that. Like, man, people have feelings. Like, you can't yell at them or like curse in every meeting. You can't chew tobacco in the middle of a meeting, anymore. Things like that. So you have to like learn a whole new culture, and that can be very daunting and also scary for a lot of folks because you don't have that support system that you always had in the military, right? When you transition, that's gone. You're like on your own, right? It's a whole new world and you need to figure it out on your own. Now, there are amazing resources out there to get you ready, but it is going to require a lot of these individuals to actually put in the work too.
Many veterans just aren't sure where to start once they've transitioned out and are looking for employment. What are some tips that you would advise others to try both before and after transitioning?
I have had this conversation, I think, probably 100 times, if not more. And I always ask, my friends who are in the military or about to transition from the military or have transitioned to the military early on and they just haven't figured it out. I ask them, like, have you ever gone into battle, blind? And usually they come back with, what do you mean? I'm like, did you have a plan before you stepped outside a wire? Yeah, I had a plan. And so I said, okay, so everything that we did in the military, we planned for it. We briefed it, right? You give your thumbs up and then you do your PCCs, PCIs, check all your gears, radio set on the right freak, get all your ammo, your weapons clean, trucks and all stuff. Like, yeah, I'm like, where are you getting at? I'm like, so why aren't you doing that with transitioning? What do you mean? Well, first of all, you don't just transition and then try to figure it out. Uh, you plan that, right? You usually have quite a bit of time before a transition. It could be minimum 60 days, right? Let's say you have 30 days. That's still 30 days to set yourself up for success. So there are programs inside of the military and partnerships like the USO Pathfinder program. You have resources out there, but you got to go after them. You can't just sit here and expect that it's going to come to you because you deserve it because you serve your country.
Flo, what does it feel like to be the recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor?
That's probably one of the most like obviously common questions that I receive, and I think I will give you an answer that you're probably not expecting. It's uncomfortable. I felt ashamed at first, and it's something I did not want, but I truly understand what it represents and the importance behind it. So I don't think there's a more uncomfortable setting than to be recognized in front of the nation at the White House for the worst day of your life. And so on that day, Griffin, Gray, Kennedy, and Reagan died. I led that patrol. I was in charge of that patrol. So to me, I failed. And now I stood on a platform with every single, top military leader in this nation. And I mean, to include obviously the president of the United States and my team and my family. And most importantly, the Gold Star families, the families of those men who didn't come home. And I'm being recognized and highlighted as, this hero would bestow this honor, wearing the Medal of Honor and being a Medal of Honor recipient. And I felt ashamed. I felt like a fraud. And I felt like I obviously not deserved. But in the end, you talk to really the Gold Star families, and they're the most powerful individuals to have by you. I'm so blessed that they wanted to be a part of it, and they understood and respected and loved me enough to be a part of this. You learn that you have a responsibility to represent your brothers and sisters while still obviously representing your nation. But most importantly, in this case, I get to represent the men who didn't come home from August 8, 2012. So it becomes a burden to an extent, but more of an honor of responsibility to earn it. And that just kind of fits into my life. I feel like I've been given a lot of opportunities to succeed. I wasn't born in, rich. I was born poor, but my parents worked their butts off to give me the opportunity to succeed. This country gave me the opportunity to succeed. This country's recognized me now with the highest, medal in the military. But it's a responsibility to earn it. So I used to say I'm here to earn the right to call myself an American because this country gave me that right and honor. Uh, that now it's more of I need to earn the right to still be on this earth and wear this medal as a courier for those people who didn't come home and their families to make sure that we never forget the names of true heroes, and that's the people who make the ultimate sacrifice and their families.
Flo, thank you so much for such an enlightening interview. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm so honored to have been a part of it.